loneliness. It's got to be one of the worst feelings in the world, and the pandemic has only made us that much more aware of how lonely life can be sometimes. Well, in this video, we're going to talk about the importance of friendships and how to develop them. Stick around, we're getting through this together. Well, hey everybody, welcome to Getting Through This Together. It's Bill and Jess doing one of our favorite social distancing activities, getting out in the great outdoors, our parks here in town. This whole series is about how we as human beings, our body, mind, and spirit, and what we do to help one helps the others. Now, in addition to that, I think we're also social beings. We, as long as humans have existed, have needed other humans to survive and thrive. Think about tribe membership. Everybody wants to be loved and accepted and welcomed into a group where they feel at home. Community offers us so much in life. It offers us an identity. It tells us who we are. It offers us support, the people we can go to. We need to talk. We need to work out things. And it offers us encouragement. We're going to talk about all that today. So let's head back home and sit down and talk together. All right, everybody, we're talking about social support today and how important it is, and maybe its opposite, which is the feeling of loneliness. I just saw this headline, "Loneliness is deadly." And you know what? I think that's true. Loneliness can actually be lethal. Now, before we get into that, I just want to say this. If you're someone who occasionally feels lonely, maybe even right now, ironically, you're not alone. A recent survey by the health insurance company Cigna said that about 50% of Americans feel lonely, particularly among our younger generations. So it's almost like an epidemic of loneliness, and it's affecting our health greatly. But before we get into that, what is loneliness? Loneliness is not the same as being alone. You can be alone and not lonely. I know that very well as an introvert. I need times of solitude and reflection. And the greatest leaders throughout history have. Even think of Jesus, who took time away from the crowds to be alone or to pray to his Father. So you can be alone but not lonely. Conversely, you can have a mass of friends, be in a city full, bustling with people, and have Facebook friends in the thousands, and still feel incredibly lonely. So what loneliness is this awareness that our social support needs are not being met. And that happens to us all the time, actually. It's actually a good thing. It's like hunger. I think God has given us the sense of hunger, us a little indicator light on our dashboard to say, hey, you need some food. You need some calories in your life right now. And similarly, God has given us another little indicator on the dashboard of our lives called loneliness. And it's a cue that we need to look for more social support. All of us experience it from time to time. And like I said, it's a good thing to feel that and then reach out for support. Unfortunately, what can be very harmful is to live inside this experience long term. And we tend to get stuck in it through one of those spirals that we've been talking about. Several weeks we've shown the same graphic and we've talked about spirals, the cruel downward spiral. It could work like this. You don't have enough friends in your life and you feel tired and depressed and anxious, and you don't have the energy to go out and meet new people, which further depresses you, and you can see how the spiral keeps going. Here's another common one. You may view others suspiciously, like, man, this person really is just pretending to be nice to me. You're going to be hyper vigilant for something they're going to do wrong to you, that they're not really interested in being your friend. And you're going to project these vibes that make people act that way toward you, and that will confirm your suspicion that people are basically bad, and then you're not going to have the support that you need. You can get locked in any number of these downward spirals and end up with inadequate social support in your life. And today we want to talk about reversing that, because it's really important. It's really important because loneliness has been found to severely impact your physical and your mental health. Let's talk about physical first. A recent study found that elderly people with inadequate social support were twice as likely to die prematurely, and the increased risk of mortality was similar to smoking and even twice as significant as the risk of obesity. Loneliness impacts many body systems. It increases your blood pressure, increases the amount of stress hormones in your body. It boosts inflammation and decreases your immune function, particularly important in times like we're living in now. But it's also bad for your mental health. It increases your risk for depression, anxiety, alcoholism, and even suicide. Let's sum this all up in one chart. Look at this dramatic finding by the AARP, a quite linear and strong correlation between someone's sense of loneliness and poor health across the board. We have to take this stuff seriously. God created us as social beings who need social interaction in our lives. We need, like I said earlier, a tribe around us to support us, to give us a sense of identity, our role in the world, our place in the world. And when we don't have that, our mental and physical health does suffer. So what can we do about it? Well, I want to introduce you to someone who's trying to make a difference. Her name is Joyce Bella. She's a licensed professional counselor, and she's working here in our community to do something really innovative for folks to keep them from being lonely. You know, today we're talking about the importance of relationships. And in the time of COVID-19, lockdowns, stay-at-home orders, social distancing, a lot of people aren't getting as much as they used to. And that can be really difficult, can't it?
It absolutely can be, Bill. We're in a situation where we've never been before. I've never lived through any of this, and I'm certain, many of us have never experienced all of what's going on right now. Social distancing is profoundly depriving to us because we all look to. Most of us anyway look for hugs and assurance and affirmation and validation, and none of that is happening right now as we have to stay 6 feet from one another. Yes, we can within families, but during these stressful times, families are having a very difficult time because they're on top of one another.
Yeah, I have a Psychology Today article in front of me right now, and it says, friendship is a lot like food. We need it to survive. And it goes on to say that over time, if that need isn't met, it can erode your arteries, create high blood pressure, undermine learning and memory. And I don't know, there's a lot of ways that lack of relationships can erode our lives. But maybe on the positive side, by intentionally cultivating those relationships, it can also add a lot to our lives and mitigate the effects of the stress that we're all feeling now. So I wonder if you have seen that in effect during your time, as a professional counselor, and maybe you've counseled people facing all sorts of difficult situations. Hey, one of the avenues of treatment for you is let's get a stronger support system around you.
Yes, I have during my almost 40 years, I guess, of working with people in the mental health field. I've done a lot of groups and found that working with groups is very beneficial because as you know, that we have all something to deal with, and we don't live perfect lives as it might appear to others sometimes. And so throughout the years, I've taught groups, in therapy groups, as well as just facilitating the groups and working with people. And they've bonded with one another, and they're able to relate to one another and develop wonderful friendships.
Yeah, that's great. And I understand that you also attend our church, Sunlight Community Church, and churches provide social support as well. And in fact, you've been very intentional about creating opportunities for social support in our women's ministry.
Yes, I have. We do have a large Morning Joy Bible study group, and smaller groups came out of that. And one of the groups that came out of that was an encouragement and support group for women who were dealing with issues and wanted to talk about it. And as we began to meet, they have so looked forward to this. We meet once a month in a group setting, but they also then have developed close friendships, call one another, support one another during the month, and begin to socialize together. And it's just wonderful to see because, as you know, Sunlight Church is just a wonderful, wonderful family. And yes, we have a beautiful building, but the truth is, it's the people and the membership in that building that is our church. And we do support one another, and we do reach out to others and make sure that others are taken care of. And it's so meaningful. It's meaningful for me as a member of Sunlight, but I know it's also meaningful for others who need friendship. They need to console and want to be validated for who they are and know that they're not alone in this struggle.
Yeah, and the old adage that it's more blessed to give than to receive might hold true in this instance as well. The act of giving to and caring about other people enriches your life as well. I'm wearing the Live Generously shirt. A little shout out to Thrivent today. And, you know, as Christians, but just as human beings, and I think psychological science would bear this out, those who are thankful and generous and caring for others do well with regard to mental health. And maybe that's a great way to apply what we're talking about today.
I think that's true. You know, I often tell, people that I'm talking to about the work that I do is that I feel like a fraud because I think I get more out of it than they do. Because I feel like I'm helping. I feel honored that they will confide in me, that they will talk with me, and they will share their heart's desires. And I think that's really important.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope people will take you up on some of the things you've suggested, leaning into various ways to find social support because it's so incredibly important. So thanks again, Joyce, and God bless.
Oh, God bless you too, Bill. Thank you.
All right, as we always do, we're going to end the show today with some quick tips for how you can put what we've talked about into practice. Now, overarching all these tips is this simple concept: quality over quantity. Each of us needs to invest in a few folks who will be there for us and support us, some real relationships. More than just growing our Facebook following to 1,000 or surrounding ourselves with crowds of people. That's not where it's at. Now, tip number one, that takes time. Investing in people takes time. You got to make time for what we're about to talk about. And do you know how you make time? You find it from all that time you're spending binge watching Netflix or mindlessly scrolling through your feed, your social media feeds. That stuff will actually sap you of energy, make you feel worse about yourself, and take away your time. If you think that's just my opinion, well, look at this quote from a recent study about Facebook. The more they used Facebook over 2 weeks, the more their life satisfaction levels declined over time. On the surface, Facebook provides an invaluable resource for fulfilling basic human needs for social connection. Rather than enhancing well-being, however, these findings suggest that Facebook may undermine it. Scientifically proven that Facebook undermines your mental health. Okay, and I know it's ironic because you're probably watching me right now on Facebook, but get off of it after you're done. As soon as this video is over, get off of it. Anyway, just kidding. Make time for real relationships wherever you can find it. Okay, tip number 2 is really important. Give relationships a shot. Remember that spiral we talked about earlier. You can get into this spiral where you're hypervigilant. You expect people to reject you. You expect people to be mean. You expect people to have ulterior motives. You expect that you're not good enough. And so you misread what their body language is, what their vocal tone is, what their posture is, and you read into it more than what's there. Don't believe that's possible? I know that's possible. I do it every Sunday when I preach. I look out and I see people that look totally bored and totally disinterested. I see people that in my mind I think hate me and want me to crawl off stage and wrap this up and die. And after the service, they're always the ones that come up to me and say, man, that's just what I look like when I'm thinking deeply. I loved it. So listen, you've got to give relationships a shot. You've got to suspend judgment. You've got to suspend that hypervigilance long enough to give it a shot and maybe project some good vibes and see what comes back. All right, let's talk about step number 3, which is those relationships. Reach out to people. 2 types of people I want to encourage you to reach out to. Reach out to someone who can offer you help. So if you're feeling like you need to unburden something, call somebody who can listen and help you. But that's not enough. Simply receiving support all the time is not going to make you feel better about yourself. You also want to make time to call somebody who you know needs a hand, who you can be there for. And eventually all friendships should become bi-directional, where we're really kind of supporting each other, right? Now, better yet than all of this is to serve alongside other people. So volunteer with an organization where you get to meet new people who share your deepest values and convictions and ideals. And as you serve alongside them shoulder to shoulder, man, you're going to develop some really great friendships. Now, as a pastor, I want to advocate churches are a great place to look for just that. And it's a coincidence, actually, but with God, there's no coincidences, right? Just this week at my church, Sunlight Community Church, we are launching into a new summer semester of community groups. Now, these groups exist for the purpose of helping link people up, get to know each other, and share the burdens of life, the ups and the downs together, and to be there for each other. So if you're a member of my church, go to sunlightchurch.com, click on Connect, and then click on Join a Group to see what's available. And by the way, even if you don't belong to Sunlight Community Church, these groups are meeting online right now. So if you're watching this from Nebraska or Idaho or Canada, wherever, you can still actually join one of these community groups and be part of what we're doing. So very exciting. Okay, finally, if you are in a place where all of the stuff we've talked about is not enough and it's not working for you, I want to reach out for professional help. There's some numbers that are going to be in the description below, crisis text line, other hotlines, and really you need support from somewhere, and there's nothing to be ashamed of for having to reach out for a little professional help from time to time. Okay, everybody, that wraps up this week's show. We'll be back next week. See you then.